Ruth says powerful and lyrical words of commitment that we most often hear at weddings. You may have said them along under your breath. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die. There will I be buried. Ruth saying, I will never abandon you. Ruth's words are a commitment, a promise. And so a couple just starting off their lives together swears like Ruth, yes, I'll stay with you and be buried with you. Wherever you go, I will stay. Wherever you bunk, well, that's where I'll put down my roots. Whoever are your people, well, they'll become mine. Even if they're an unknown group to me, with a different language and customs, even if they attend a different church or synagogue or ashram, though they serve very different food at the Thanksgiving table, I'll get used to it, I promise. All that is yours will be mine as well. That's the level of commitment I have to you. And we are thrilled, aren't we, to hear those words used in a wedding ceremony. They were just here last month. But today you heard Betsy read their true context, and that perhaps makes them even more lyrical. Because Ruth says those words. Ruth makes that commitment, not on a day of celebration filled with hope, but at her lowest ebb in time. Ruth makes her commitment to Naomi not as a new marriage is on the horizon, but after all the marriages have already ended in bitter grief, hers and her sister-in-law Orpah's and Naomi's. Ruth makes this deep commitment not to a romantic partner, but to her aged mother-in-law. Not even a blood relative, but an old woman who's likely to become very dependent on her for elder care, and sooner rather than later. One widow, you see, is making a commitment to another widow. One person who has been left aching and empty after a death says to another, I will stay with you in your time of need. Ruth's commitment to Naomi is made when things are bleak. At the beginning of the story, a family of Jews, Naomi and her husband, have been forced to leave their home country because they are starving. There's no work. The children cry out in hunger. And what can a parent do as the children moan at night as they waist to thin arms and legs, their eyes too large in their faces? Then parents must leave and go to another country where there is more food, as Naomi did with her husband Elimelech. No one ever wants to do this. It's dangerous to leave home. It's hard to learn new languages and customs. A newcomer is often taken advantage of in a new place, forced to do the worst jobs at the worst pay, and they have little recourse. But out of desperation, at the beginning of this story, Naomi and her husband have left their home in Bethlehem, which ironically means the city of bread. They have to go to Moab, a foreign country that is not friendly to them. But really, what can they do? After 10 years, we hear that more tragedy strikes. Naomi loses not only her husband to death, but now also her 2 sons. And I think on this All Saints and All Souls days, when we are remembering those we mourn, we probably glimpse the enormity of that loss that Naomi suffered, a son, another son, and her husband. Naomi finds herself alone in a foreign land, an alien. So when she learns that there may be food again in Bethlehem, she resolves to return. But Ruth will not let Naomi, who old and by herself, travel there alone. I will cross the border with you, Ruth tells Naomi. Then I will stay with you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. That's a commitment. To not abandon a person in need. To stand with another even if you're not related to them by blood. To stand with another because they are in need and you choose to see them as your kin. Ruth is a story of powerful commitments, choosing to call another person, another people, our own. Today, for All Saints and All Souls Sunday, we soon will all have a chance, all of you here, to come forward if you would like and light a candle for for those we've known whom we miss. And I wager that Ruth and Naomi's story will be part of yours, part of the lives that you'll be honoring. You may light a candle for someone who made a commitment to you, and you will never forget them. Today we'll light a candle for Elsie Wilmerding, who died of ALS. She made a commitment to her husband Patrick, to her children, to all of her students and her friends, saying, I will love you and support you and walk with you always. Though the words seem scrambled when you try to read them, though at times your heart is breaking or your gait lags, I will make a commitment to you. She showed that to us. She kept her commitment, and so today we will light a candle of thanksgiving for her life. We will light a candle for another member also, Herman Warner, who joined this church in his 80s as a widower, saying, I was a stranger, but you welcomed me. And then he committed to us. He came to nearly everything we host here. He made commitments and kept them, and so did you, this congregation, loving this man who came to us so late in life. That light will shine out from his candle, a light for all of us to live by. You may today light a candle for a parent who is committed to making a stable home for you after the divorce, or did the best they could to love you, although it wasn't always enough. You may light for a friend who remained loyal when you needed them most, or family members who tried hard. Still, they made a commitment and tried to keep it. And those commitments call for candles of remembrance. It might be, though, that the candle you light will be for one to whom you made the commitment. I know that there are those here who made a commitment to Joy Natoli and to Janet Dolan and to many others. You said you would care for them, regardless of their fading mind or immobile bodies, their frustration or their anger, and you kept your commitment as best you could, and that deserves a light in our world for them and for you, the lives together you shared. It could be, though, that you'll also light a candle for someone for whom you could not make a commitment, or for whom you could not keep the commitment you'd once made. Remember in the story Orpah, the second daughter-in-law, who did not leave her homeland and did not return to Bethlehem with Naomi. She stayed at home. But Orpah is not condemned in this story. And Naomi fully understands her choice. In fact, Naomi affirms Orpah's choice. So there may be some of you today, some of us who wish things could have turned out differently, that you could have remained longer with your beloved. Perhaps, and for those of us, perhaps Orpah and Naomi can guide us today to accept what happened as Naomi does without condemnation, and now at that time and after death, find a way to move forward. Sometimes meeting a person's need is not ours alone to do, and God finds a way to fill what is needed, even if that is received after death. It is a love given and received. Now, there are some preachers who rail against Orpah, I'll admit. They call her a heretic who doesn't choose the one true God. But I see that as a subsequent gloss on this story, one that's often conveniently used by the preacher to deride someone who believes differently than he or she. It's really not part of the story. And since the American Revolution, we here at King's Chapel have chosen to respect different people's free choice of whom to worship and how to do so. The book of Ruth, you see, provides no warrant for Christians to hate Muslims or for Protestants to burn Catholics at the stake. No, just the opposite. If anything, this story tells us that we are all made one kin. It certainly would not justify anyone's decision to murder a dozen steadfast Jews at prayer in Pittsburgh. The book of Ruth shows that when people are desperate for food, poor and unable to provide for themselves, as Naomi and her children were at first, or as Naomi and Ruth are when they return to Bethlehem, the Bible doesn't divide people between the righteous and the wrong, not in this story. It teaches that we provide food and shelter to the stranger and the foreigner who cross a border hungry. Here's how Jesus said that same concept. When we profess to love God with all our heart and soul and strength and mind, then we will do this also. We'll love the stranger, the foreigner, the one we dislike as much as we love ourselves. Ruth and Naomi represent the formation of a new kind of family by God, created from people of different nations and different religions, particularly when they're in the deepest need. That's when the profound commitment by Ruth is made. That's when the profound commitment by Naomi is made. One hungry widow to an empty-handed, grief-stricken elder. I promise wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you rest your head, I will lay mine. Your people are my people now. Your Yemeni children, your Honduras children are mine. Love them the way you would love your own. If they are hungry and walking great distances for food, if you haven't found it true, for haven't you found it true, that when you make a commitment to another who is hungry, your own soul is fed? When you keep your commitment, even though it's received with ill temper by the person you're sharing it with, even if it's unappreciated, haven't you known that you were doing something honorable? And in the quiet of the night, that gave you peace? Haven't you experienced a deeper calm when, though others walked away, you stood at someone's side? A gay or transgender person, someone otherly able, a person of less income or stature, and you said, where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people. And by doing these things, dear people of King's Chapel, you are preparing for what is to come. A deeper sense of peace still, a knowledge more complete than we will ever have in this life. For from a distant shore, we see the light shining ever more clearly. Because here's the great good news on this All Saints and All Souls Sunday. We hear loud the clarion commitment of God to us and to all those whom we miss, an eternal commitment forever kept. I, your God, will never abandon you, no matter where you go or how far you wander. However weak or strong the commitments are that you've kept to me, I remain committed to you, says God. And when this life has come to an end, you will all come into this blessed family where you are known and loved, no longer a stranger to anyone, where all people will finally fully be your people too. Then, as St. Paul declared, and as we read at the very beginning of this service, ye are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and with the whole household of God. Alleluia, alleluia.